everyone. My name is Gilda Ross, and I coordinate the GPS Parent Series. I am so delighted that you are here to join us today. Our mission for GPS is to inspire and inform for healthy families and engaged learning, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Our ask of all of you that are listening to please share this resource with your friends, your families, your neighbors. Everyone is always welcome to GPS. It's our 30th year, and we're just delighted to reach out even further across the country and let everyone know about the opportunities and the challenges and the support that's here to raise healthy families today. So quickly, let me tell you about upcoming events. This week, we have our special guest, Drew Ramsey. I'm so excited. Then we have next week, Beth Hoff will be with us on Monday. We'll be talking about the partnerships that are so critical between schools and families and the topics that we care about: school absenteeism, school anxiety, failing grades, challenging behavior. That's on Monday. Then, as we go into December, very excited about welcoming Ethan Cross and Jamil Zaki. Ethan Cross's book is titled Shift. His first book was titled Shatter. He's from the University of Michigan. He'll be in conversation with Jamil Zaki from Stanford, who has written a book called The War for Kindness. That's on Tuesday, December 2nd. Second week of December, we'll be talking about college. It'll be in Spanish and in English. From Here to Higher Ed, Why College Includes You, December 4th. Thursday at 7 p.m. only. Then Jeff's continuing the conversation on college for the rest of the month. Jeff Salingo will be talking about his latest book, Dream School, Finding the College That's Right for You. His first book was called Who Gets In and Why. He'll be in conversation with Ron Lieber, who's written the book about the biggest financial decision your family will ever make. It should be an interesting conversation on the 10th at noon and 7 p.m. So share. Again, let everyone know that we're here. I'm so excited that our principal, recently award-winning principal, John Mensick of Glenbard North, has the introductions. So John, take it away.
Thank you, Gilda. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Drew Ramsey. Dr. Drew Ramsey is a board-certified psychiatrist, psychotherapist, author, and leading figure in nutritional psychiatry and integrative mental health. He integrates the latest research with his decades of clinical experience to help people improve their mental health and build resilient mental fitness. He is a fellow in the American Psychiatric Association and the founder of the Brain Food Clinic, a digital mental health practice, and Spruce Mental Health in Jackson, Wyoming. For 20 years, he served as an assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at Columbia University. Dr. Ramsey is the author of 4 previous books, including the international bestseller, Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety, The Happiest Diet, a nutritional prescription for a sharp brain, and Healing the Modern Brain, which is I have right in front of me right here, 9 tenets to build mental fitness and revitalize your mind. And he has delivered 3 TEDx talks, been featured by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, on the Today Show and NPR, as well as other noticeable outlets. We are delighted to welcome him to the GPS Parent Series today.
Awesome. Thank you, John, so much. And I appreciate you holding up the book. You know, that really gets every author going before a talk. So I appreciate you. And thank you so much. First of all, just thanks for the series. I loved sharing this today on my Instagram stories, free resources for parents, talks. I love Ethan Cross and Jamil. I've interviewed both of them, and I'm going to tune in for that one. It's just wonderful that to get to share with a group like this and to know that the message is carrying forward and helping parents with hard decisions. I'm hoping the hard decisions I'll be helping you with are around the dinner table and the grocery store, and maybe some of how you're thinking about your own mental health and what we're going to be talking about mental fitness. Let me share my slide deck. But John, thank you for that kind introduction. Gilda, thank you so much for picking me and giving me the opportunity to share these thoughts. I want to go over my slides. We're going to take about 45 minutes. I'm going to take questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to go through a little quickly, but you'll have access to the slide deck. And I hope this will help you as you're thinking about, what do we do about our mental health? So this is about healing the modern brain and nourishing your mental health. Quickly, my disclosures. I do some work for Men's Health Magazine. I'm an author on social media. I try and keep it reasonable and responsible. I'm not going to talk about any medications. I do some work for a few different organizations, but nothing related to what we're talking about today. Now, times has changed for those of us as parents. My kids are 15 and 12, so I'm in this with you. And what we're up against, keeping our daughter off of Snapchat, keeping, kids focused on things like reading books. My life has changed too over the past decade. I've been mostly a New York City psychiatrist, but I've also lived back in rural Indiana with my family and our these two goats, Misty and Clover. And then, of course, I'm getting to look out right now, this picture on the left with the rest of you, trying to be a parent, trying to hold steady as the world's really changing and changing for our kids in ways that, can leave me really terrified and feeling unmoored. And so I hope today's talk will help you with some orientation about, in the midst of those feelings, what do we do? I've tried to write a lot of books on nutritional psychiatry, just really intrigues me, this idea that your most sort of energy consuming organ, we'll talk about that, uses a very specific type of fuel. And it's not the fuel that the majority of Americans are eating. Most of our calories don't come from the right types of foods. I'm not going to probably tell you a lot of surprising foods, just so you know, but I am going to encourage you, and a lot of the common sense you have as a parent, I'm going to want you to keep enacting that. Healing the Modern Brain is my new book, and it's about mental fitness, that nutritional psychiatry, what we eat, absolutely critical. But you can be eating all the good stuff, the salmon, the pesto, the kale, right? And still not have mental fitness. We all know about this. You can still be struggling maybe with a lot of trauma that you haven't worked through, or you could really have horrible sleep hygiene, or you could, be doing all the right stuff, but you're so obsessed with your health and your fitness that, well, you're not actually paying attention to the most important thing for your mental health as you age, your relationships and your connections. So I go over 9 tenets that I really want you working on, not to burden you, but I want you working on and thinking about every day, every week. Um, Again, nothing surprising. That's why it's a tenet. I have a podcast. We've done one season. We're working on another season, trying to bring to the internet some of just the most fun, best experts on nutritional psychiatry and mental health. The folks in here, the number 2 listed there, woman Felice Jack is the most published researcher in nutritional psychiatry in the world, and just awesome. And to hear her talk about how food impacts our kids' brain, nobody does it better. So please check out some of those. So just quickly to orient you, I grew up in really rural Indiana. This is Crawford County, the poorest county in Indiana. I really don't know exactly what it means or how it happens. And I'm now talking to you from Jackson, Wyoming, which is often considered the wealthiest county in America. That wasn't like an intentional thing, but boy, I really appreciate that I have gotten to have my foot in both worlds, very firmly planted in both of those worlds. And being from a farm, growing up in rural America, has just given me a great perspective as a psychiatrist, and I hope given me some humility and some perspective. I guess maybe since you guys are in Illinois, I want you to know I'm a Midwestern too. So just so you know, but the farm, actually, I'm headed back here in a couple of weeks. I was just here a few weeks ago. This pond is a secret to my health and happiness. That's where my microbiome comes from, because that's pretty much, we spent all summer there. And then as I went through the Indiana Academy, a great magnet school for Indiana's gifted kids, to Earlham College, then on to Indiana University Medical School. Eventually, I found my way to New York City. I was 26. And I got to train at a really special time where people started thinking about talking about their mental health. It was like cool to be a psychiatrist for the first time, really, in history. And people cared about food. Like the fact that I was from a farm, people were like, thought that was cool. I knew how to drive a tractor, and it was like very interesting and exciting for me as a country kid. These two things come together, our food and our mental health, and what we call nutritional psychiatry. This is the Brooklyn Grange Farm. It's one of the largest rooftop farms in America. And I think, to me, this picture represents kind of where we are. I love this urban landscape and all the chefs and all the great food, but I also got to put my hands in the dirt. I need to know where my food comes from. And I think more and more of us want that. We want both of these things, the kind of urban innovation with food, and then that real sense of like, it's coming from good, healthy soil. Nutritional psychiatry has been catching on. My first book came out in 2011. I've just loved seeing more and more of us think about, what can we do to optimize our mental health? What foods can we eat? Why are we eating the wrong foods? Kale blew up. I was really excited when we wondered like who made kale. I feel like it was our team, and I'm very grateful for kale. I had a problem, it's true. I wrote a sex book about it. If your kids ever want to write an erotic book about a vegetable, I'm glad that we've met. You've got my number. You call me, DM me. I'm here for you. Okay, it's not the best move. now here these are our kids, and we're out here in really, Jackson, Wyoming is known for a lot of things, but it's also very isolated. It's a wonderful place to be with a family, very safe community. We're very grateful to be here, very active community when it comes to mental health, thinking about mental health, getting out. So what's this modern brain that we're talking about? Not a lot has changed. You got the same brain cells in a certain way, except now they've got a lot of microplastic in them. Right now they have a little bit of a different fatty acid ratio in the cell membrane. Now there's a lot of other molecules it's processing and dealing with that it's just never really eaten before. And then this modern brain is dealing with a whole lot of new challenges. 60 million Americans have depression and anxiety, right? So on this call, we think about maybe 20% of folks on this call are significantly struggling with their mental health. 14% of adults are taking an antidepressant medication. A lot of us on this call are. A lot of times we think that means like, oh, mental fitness has failed. I don't know. To me, that means that like I'm feeling better and I'm grateful. We also 1 in 4 women over the age of 60. I love this statistic because people see that and like, oh, it's awful. We're overprescribing. Do you know any women over the age of 60 who do stuff they don't want to do? I don't. Right? Women hit that age, and there's a way. Often there's they're taking those medicines because they help. So then there's that question. So what's causing us to be so depressed, right? And so anxious? Some of it's our genetics for sure, but we have these new stressors and these new challenges for our brain, right? We're eating different foods. 70 to 80% of all calories now come from ultra processed foods, stuff we open up. Some of it's a little healthier, maybe like a whole grain rice cake. Some of it, not so much, key lime pie, low fat yogurt, right? And then some of it's all around us. That's what our kids eat for school lunches. We've got screens, we've got the microplastics. We have more noise and light than we've ever had before, things we don't often think about. And then, of course, there's social media that's like taken over our lives, taken over our kids' lives, taken over our self-esteem in a certain way. I'm really hoping I get off this call and see you've all followed me and I'll feel amazing, which is kind of scary, right? And then alcohol and substances, boy, more mommies and daddies come sit on my couch and man, with a little grin and a twinkle in their eye, they tell me about their ayahuasca journey, how they did DMT, they're vaping some Delta 8, they tried a little kratom. It's really fascinating. We're just doing a lot of different stuff, drinking a lot. And so all of this has led to this idea of mental fitness is I find a lot of folks aren't engaged with their mental health until there's a crisis. And I love a crisis. I'm great in a crisis. I'm happy to meet with you. You get my cell phone number. I'll talk to you every day until you get out of the crisis. But I also wonder, and especially for our kids, why do we need a crisis? Why can't we be preventative? Why can't we be working and building our mental health? That's what I want for my kids. And so mental fitness, again, we have physical fitness. I tell you like, ooh, I'm feeling kind of soft, guys. Just quick time out from the talk. Could you guys give me some core exercises? All of you could give me a great core session, right? Somehow. When it comes to mental fitness or keeping our mind and our mental health strong, what do we do? And so I think there's knowledge that we need. I'm going to share some of it today. I think there's habits that we need for ourselves, our families, our kids, right? And then I think there's some new skills. There's just stuff I needed to learn. I was just journaling this morning and as I sat down, it was like I put on noise cancellation headphones. And I was like with my mind on the page, one word at a time. And it was so refreshing. I realized I haven't journaled in weeks. Been a huge part of my mental health. So some skills like that, right? I need to learn to split board. Maybe you need to learn to make pesto, right? And all of this, when we engage in this, we get a more enjoyable, a more mentally sound life. The challenges that come to us are mental health challenges and us, our families, our friends, our parents. We just have more resources to deal with that. So the big concepts you got to know about, new knowledge, you got to know about neuroplasticity, right? This is in some ways a little bit of an abused term right now. Like every psychedelic gives you neuroplasticity, right? But neuroplasticity is the idea of brain growth and repair. That your human brain, when I finished medical school, it was like, good luck, Ramsey, you got 90 billion neurons. We're worried about you. Don't get any more in adult life. And that's really changed. Neuroplasticity is our brain's ability to grow and repair itself. It revolves around this molecule, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And I like this as a model, right? Because when I'm struggling, I moved here. Boy, it was hard here the first few years. But I knew no matter how bad I was feeling with help, with treatment, that my brain would be where it is now. It's still great. But that's a process of neuroplasticity. And so then the question, what gets me more brain growth factor? What gets me more BDNF? And it turns out all the stuff that helps mental health, exercise, eating right, antidepressants, ECT, TMS, right? All of the treatments in mental health. It's kind of a final common pathway is how I think about it. So neuroplasticity, long gone are the days that I'm just thinking about serotonin. Right? Neuroinflammation is also what we're up against. All this stuff, the noise, the lack of sleep, right? We have more inflammation going on in the brain. When we look at people who have what's called treatment-resistant depression, meaning you've tried at least 2 medications and haven't gotten better, and psychotherapy usually, right? That about 30 to 40% of patients with depression end up in that category, and they have a lot of inflammatory factors, right? Even patients who get better from depression, inflammatory factors stay a little higher. What does neuroinflammation feel like? I think you all know because you've had a hangover. Not all of you, but most of you. That's inflammation, low mood, right? Just feeling kind of sad, like anxiety, oh, brain fog. Like I'm going to call you next time you're hungover and ask you to do some easy math, like 24 minus 18, right? And you just kind of like, oh, this is why, right? When you start drinking for this, is probably you're like, we know this. We have teens, guy. Like, keep going. We know drinking's bad, but it's hard, I think, as a parent. What do we do with this information? Oh, guys, check it out. The beer you're craving causes inflammation in your brain. Um, I don't know what to do with this data sometime, but I guess for parents, because we're still the generation that's generally drinking too much, I'd like you to see it. Because the only thing that ever matters that you say to your kids about alcohol and drugs it's not any words. It's just what you do, how you approach it, how you explore, how you're responsible with it, how you have boundaries and don't tell them about all of it. Right. So 4 hours after alcohol, CRP, that's main inflammatory protein in your blood, it goes up by 80%. Right. On the bottom, glutathione and superoxide dismutase are the major antioxidants in your brain. Again, we talked about the brain burns more energy than any fuel, so it creates more waste, more free radicals. Well, 4 hours after drinking, you've got like 30% fewer of the most important one in your brain, superoxide dismutase. 12 hours later, you can see in the graph what happens. So that's what alcohol does to the brain. That's what neuroinflammation feels like. And lots of things cause that for us, right? The cause of neuroinflammation starts with some people, poor diet, right? Eating a diet that's excess in calories and deficient in nutrients. We gain weight. We get a lot of what's called visceral adiposity. That makes a lot of inflammatory factors, right? We don't socialize. Super wild in this book, doing all the research for healing the modern brain. I was like, how does, I don't know, like social connection affect BDNF? Oh yeah, it does. Right? How does things like chronic stress affect inflammation and BDNF? For sure it does. Just being more socially isolated increases interleukin 6, right? And CRP, just like drinking does, not as much. And so there are things, again, in our everyday life and lifestyle that matter when it comes to neuroplasticity, inflammation. And then a new player in this space is the microbiome. Again, big buzzword in the wellness space. Everybody wants you to take probiotics. I want to be real clear. The science is phenomenal. Right here, Drew Ramsey, 24,000 genes. Like, that's it. I was super disappointed. I thought I had more genes. Like, my wife, I was joking, my wife's minivan has more parts. Right here in my gut, 12.6 million genes in all the billions of organisms living in my gut, trillions. These are in constant contact and communication with the brain. It's a bidirectional communication. And like, blah, blah, blah. Microbiome all comes down to this. Are you trying to feed your kids some fermented foods? I packed Greta's lunch today with some pickles. All right. I would love to put some like kefir in there, but she's not big on that yet. Right. Like sauerkraut. So I incorporate that into her rice bowls. Right. How do we get more fermented foods and how do we get our kids eating 30 different plants a week? That's your mission, mom and dad, because that's what matters for the microbiome. All this other stuff, right? The gummies, it's just like wasting your time. The problem with our kids is they're not eating enough plants. They're not eating any fermented foods. So it's great. Get the miso soup, the sauerkrauts, the kimchi if they like it. So mental fitness is thinking about nutrition, really with our kids' mental health in mind. It's thinking about these tenets because I got tired of arguing. If you're on the internet every now and then and you say something about food, you're pissing off the vegans. Sorry, you're making the vegans mad. You're making the carnivores mad. You're not and I just wanted like some stuff we agree on. We all agree what we eat affects our mental health and eating better whole foods is good for us. Nobody disagrees with that. We all agree having more self-awareness, take that breath, settle down, right? Get into that kind of wise mind, as we call it in therapy, right? Think about where you are in life. Are you 50? Are you 40? Are you 60? Right? Those are very different ages. To think about our movement and our sleep and our connections and our level of engagement. That's really the tenet that asks you, the algorithm's going to be more delicious. Algorithms it's like chocolate cream pie of experiences, right? To be really engaged in your life, you have to make the choices of what you like because the algorithm is going to serve you up an approximation of what it thinks you like. Grounding is your time in nature. Unburdening is, I've just noted on my couch, boy, people in surprising ways share a lot of stuff they're hanging on to. And not that we can let go completely of trauma, but there's all kinds of ways that maybe we don't understand or engage in trauma. And that's my encouragement. And then this all leads us to the tenet of purpose, because we all know, you all know, you wake up and your kids need something and you know about it, right? You wake up with purpose. You don't need an alarm. 5 minutes before the alarm, you're up. Because a life lived with purpose, that's where our motivation, our energy, our grit, it's so much easier to access that. You never sleep in on a day when you know your purpose. So I just want to go over a couple of these tenets. I go over them in detail in the book. I also have an e-course, really trying to think about how do you get this going in your life? Because you're all struggling with different challenges with your mental fitness. Some of you have got the nutrition dialed in. Some of you run laps around me with your movement. Self-awareness is the foundation of mental fitness because we're in different places and we're always now hearing more and more different messages and influence. We've got to kind of center down and think about what are your stressors, right? They're different than mine. You know, some overlap. I bet you're caring for your aging parents and your teen kids, probably like a lot of you like me, right? But it's specific. When I go home, the way I regress is a little different. I've got different triggers than you do. And we try to notice our patterns, right? We call this maladaptive. How do I perpetuate it? You know, how do I not pay attention to maybe visits home that haven't been great? This idea we must observe ourselves to change the self. And so often I find myself and my patients are in a stance of wanting other people to do this for us. Tell me about it. What's my path? How am I doing? And feedback's great, but I really want you to do more of it. A lot of times I just show the power of your mind right now by just asking you wherever you are. We're just going to spend 60 seconds and just bring you into your body. I'm just trying to take those great, I like the box breathing, nice big inhale through the nose. I like a nice pause there. Feel that hard, boom, 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 boom. And then I exhale through pursed lips. And this should be the longest. Let your eyes soften. And then just start at your big toe. And like a little MRI scanner, I think about it, just kind of scanning up, and there's a calm feeling as it goes past. It's looking for any tension, and it's going to calm it down, and just bring it up your legs, through your thighs. Big another breath, fill up those lungs, through your hips. If you hit your abdomen, I really hope that abdomen's soft with that big breath. And remember that exhale's a long, long part. Keep coming up, shoulders, neck, so much tension in your neck, I bet. Up through your eyes. Oh, maybe put those cold fingers you have them on your eyeballs and just kind of sit with your body. Maybe that was 90 seconds. You might feel a little different. The more you practice that, the more you do that, the more those of you who are into mindfulness or meditation, you just shifted your state. You shifted the circuitry in your brain. Self-awareness is saying we always have this power, whether you're nervous on the plane in turbulence, whether you're terrified that your kids are okay. We cultivate self-awareness like this through our breath work, through our mindfulness work, tasting exercises. I've told you I love the journaling. I love where the journaling leads me. Just never know where it's, what that last little idea, that last little line is for you. And then I also know a lot of people don't take advantage of all we know about mental health. You don't have to do a CBT therapist like every week if you want to learn about CBT. If you're a little borderline, you split, you got a little identity diffusion, you like to party, right? But you're also like, tucked in. But it's great that you learn a little bit about DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, because those are great skills. Wise mind, mindfulness, frustration tolerance. So again, self-awareness is notice your patterns, notice your relational themes. My pattern is I spend too much time on these slides. I'm going to move through movement quickly, and I'm going to get to this last one. The most powerful treatment for anxiety and depression, and the reason I talk about that, folks, is it's the mental illness most of us are going to struggle with. And what works for that also works for ADHD and recovery from trauma. It's kind of the foundational basic movement. I call it this instead of exercise because of a woman I was treating. I was telling her, exercise, got exercise. And she just didn't want to. She never did. And then she came back one day and she'd been at a tango dancing class. And, this was a really wonderful moment where if you look at the data, wonderful moment for me as a clinician. She came in glistening, glowing. She said, "Oh, I had never told you I used to dance tango. It sounds weird. I'm not. I just walked by a class. I walked in one day and I just loved it." She dances for a couple hours. If you look at the evidence, what's the movement that's best for mental health and depression? It's dancing, but a large effect size, something I never recommend. And now I do, right? Especially when people are trying to get sober. I recommend there's this sober dance party, Daybreaker. So connection, another huge piece of our mental fitness. And know as a parent, something we're always paying attention to. How are my kids doing? Making friends, having friends, taking care of friends. So oftentimes, though, I find what people really want to hear about is what to eat. And the new data of that, especially as it applies to our kids, there's actually a lot of data that's just come out about teens and mental health, particularly young men and mental health. And so in this part of the talk, I just want to do a deep dive on that for maybe the past maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to show you the actual primary literature and the research that's been done. I'm going to talk to you about the food categories that I think are most important for both us, right? You guys are all caregivers. And so it doesn't work unless your brains are good, right? It doesn't matter what we're feeding your kids if you're not taking care of your depression, your anxiety, your trauma, your ADHD, because we just can't bring. I've been a parent who's not doing the best with my mental health. It's the worst part of it, the worst part of it, right? Because you just see it. You're not bringing your A game to parenting, and there's nothing that hurts us more as parents. So nutritional psychiatry can help us with that. I find food can be really overwhelming as a parent. Like even for me, right? Where I know what to eat, but boy, sometimes you're fatigued. You've just made hundreds and hundreds of meals at this point. But we're trying to use nutrition to optimize brain health, give those brain cells what they need, and then to treat and for us as parents, maybe prevent mental health concerns. I have a lot of mental illness in my family: addiction, psychosis, bipolar disorder, trauma, ADHD, right? I don't know what's going to manifest in my kids, but I do know if they're eating the right foods, if I have them engaged in exercise, if I have them learning skills, that's more that they can bring to the fight. The data's really emerged, right? So it's been about a decade of progress. This was a group paper that I was able to put out with the International Society of Nutrition and Psychiatry Research, simply saying, all your other doctors care about what you eat. And your cardiologist, he wants I guess he's been wanting you to drink more red wine. Not anymore, not anymore. Right? We know gastroenterologist wants you to eat certain foods, lots of fiber. But what about your psychiatrist? Well, your psychiatrist wants you to eat certain foods according to the evidence now. So 15 years ago, this paper came out. And I just want to show you where the evidence has gone. Now, before we do that quickly, your brain, as I said, really hungry. You're eating, let's say, around 2,000, 2,500 calories a day. So 20% of that, if it's 2,500, that all goes to your brain, a fifth of your calories. Some nutrients like vitamin B9, folate, super concentrated in the brain. Other nutrients like potassium, 50 times more potassium in your brain than in your bloodstream. And your brain's mainly fat. And really important you think about this, because if you need to take care of fat. Fat is like an oil, right? It burns. And so, and the brain fat, DHA, we'll talk about this omega-3 fat, is really easily flammable. And so it's going to oxidize. That's why, fish turns and smells bad. That's the smell of oxidized, rancid brain fat, basically. It's the omega-3 fats that have oxidized. And so we want to have lots of antioxidant power in our brain. Again, I showed you that graph of what happens when you drink. I know, probably ruined Friday night. I'm sorry. So we got this idea of how do we take this into the clinic, right? What is an actual brain food? And it led to some ideas that I didn't find in medical school, right? We learn about calories mostly in medical school, but what really matters is nutrient density. Kale salad right here in my hand, 3 cups of kale, little olive oil, little lemon, chiffonade, very nice. It's going to be about 140 calories, right? Small 12-ounce can of Coke, 140 calories. This has no nutrition for your brain. This is like folate, iron, vitamin E, fiber, all the phytonutrients, vitamin K, vitamin A. I mean, like 2,000% of your daily need of vitamin K. That's what you get in this kale salad. So that's nutrient density. And those are the foods we all want to be eating because we don't need as much of them. We've talked about neuroplasticity and inflammation. Sometimes I get to this time, people are like, yeah, what about a multivitamin? I think the problem's food, right? When people are like, oh, but my multivitamin, it's my insurance policy. It's like, oh, what's that an insurance policy for? Eating the wrong foods? Who told you there's an insurance policy for that? There's no insurance policy for that. So what happens in psychiatry when we ask about food? This is maybe 15 years ago. Cool stuff. My patients liked me more and we had more fun. And I got to share a side of myself that everybody eats. Right? We all struggle with how much dark chocolate we can have. We all like cake and ice cream. And there was this wonderful shift in my practice. I still did all the stuff, all the hard stuff, right? But I also got to talk about food in a way that was really fun. And I got to understand that some foods have more nutrition than others. These are from Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety. That book's been published into 12 languages now, and it's just been probably the biggest honor of my life to collaborate with an illustrator and pull some recipes together and really create a very straightforward 6-week plan of how to get you back on track with the most important food categories. And this slide, what I want you to see is cashews. You love them, yummy, great, lots of iron, but almonds, walnuts, right, all the other nuts, equally interesting and important to me. Same thing with kale. You might hate kale at this point. I would appreciate that, right? But so we don't have to eat kale. We can still be friends. Mesclun, I'd be interested. Bok choy, maybe you're a bok choy fan. A little steamed bok choy would be nice. A little soy on there. Leafy greens is a food category we're after. And however you achieve that, you and your family, super important because of so much nutrient density. Now, a lot of times I do a bit of a self-assessment here just to show you a little bit of, again, shifting from like, hey, don't eat fat, don't eat cholesterol. Instead of thinking, okay, like salads, that's fun, lots of colors in your salad. But besides the salad, how do you eat leafy greens? You braise them. My favorite way is garlic sauteed with chiffonaded lacinato kale, just so I can say chiffonaded and lacinato in the same sentence. Right? But you know, dropping them in your soup and stews. Right? One of our favorite dishes in our home is the kale mac and cheese and Eat Complete. Oh my gosh, it's like this much kale, and you'd never know. And you're not even hiding it because it's green. Great St. Patrick's Day dish. What are your 3 favorite fiber foods? We're like, oh, no one eats enough fiber, right? Well, okay. Which ones do you like? Because it's beans and lentils, folks. That's where you got to go. And more veggies. But beans and lentils are really where it's at. And then some fruits, right? I love pears. Raspberries have lots of fiber. What do you dip in olive oil? It's okay. You can think bread. I'm the first doctor you're going to meet. I'm going to recommend you eat bread and dip it in olive oil. Later, I'm going to recommend clams. And I hope you've heard my lentil recommendation. If not, it's here. Number 4, lentils. Why? Faster to make from dried than beans. So much fold. I'm going to show you all the nutritions of all the nutrients in a cup of lentils. It's going to blow your mind. Blow your mind. Seafood meals this week, because that's where the omega-3 fats come from, right? Fish oil pill, okay. But like getting that also as parents, for me, I'm thinking about that, what we call grom in our house, that palate. Like my daughter has it, my son doesn't, right? Where she'll try stuff, she'll taste stuff. She a little more sour, a little more fish, right? Getting them, or actually my son gets credit. His favorite dish he once told me was rainbow trout. I instantly started to cry. Andropause, it's so hard. So your seafood meals, what are they going to be? I recommend the all kale Caesar, so you can tell that great dad joke. You know, they say that kale's a modern fad food, right? And I say, oh no, it's not. It was eaten even in ancient Rome, right? Because they all walked around saying all kale Caesar. All right, so moving on. This week, how many CFUs have you eaten, right? This is when you've thought I've lost it, but not UFOs, people, CFUs. CFUs are colony forming units. And just my way of saying, like, you eaten the fermented foods or not? Because you're not. You had miso soup last time you had sushi. What else? Impress me. Have it every day. Why? The data is incredible. You eat more fermented foods, you have a more diverse microbiome, you have less inflammation. Sounds nice. And then I'm a psychiatrist. You ask people about food, they just talk about guilt, not just, but often. And they don't talk enough about joy. I often ask people, tell me about your favorite food. Tell me about your favorite meal. What's the favorite thing you like to make with your partner? What's your kid's favorite food, right? Because I like favorites. Why not have a life where you're eating more of your favorite stuff? I just want to hear the brain healthiest version of that you can make. Now, here's the depressing news. AI made this for me. I said, bring together all the data because I kept bringing this 2006 slide up and it felt outdated. So this is all the data on that we're not doing it. This is why people take multivitamins. They're like, oh, this is complicated. I don't even know where to find potassium. Where do you find potassium besides a banana? And I think that if you don't have an answer to that, which I don't, and I'm going to tell you before the end of the talk, don't worry, or I didn't, it just kind of shows the state of things. How are we good parents if we don't know where to find potassium? And I don't mean to burden you, but it isn't that hard, right? Potatoes, white beans are your 2 go-to sources, along with bananas. long-chain omega-3 fats. I already told you that's a seafood. My little rhyme, you're going to hear it, hopefully all over the internet. It's what'll be on my tombstone someday, maybe in my Times where I have Drew Ramsey. Seafood greens, nuts and beans, and a little dark chocolate. Rainbow celebrations. I need like a little dance. Like, don't forget the fermentations. And those are the food categories when you're like, oh, what should we have for dinner? That's how I think. And that little rhyme in my head. I hope it's in your head. Seafood greens, nuts and beans, and a little dark chocolate. As you can see, some of the most important nutrients. Remember I told you the brain's made of fat. You got to have things to protect fat. Vitamin E is one of the most important antioxidants you eat. It's fat soluble. It goes into your brain, protects it. Oh, not for 92% of you who not only don't meet the RDA, but if we're honest, don't know that vitamin E comes from olive oil, avocados, and almonds and sunflower seeds. And again, I didn't know that either. But when you start putting those sunflower seeds in your salads, when you start eating more almonds, I packed my daughter a big chunk of almonds, a big chunk, big little container. I'm not making any sense. Let's move on. These are some of the free downloads on my website and part of our e-courses where I just want you to feel more confident about this stuff that I didn't know. Where do we find this? And so, as I said, magnesium. You can see beans and greens. I should probably also say nuts. Right? Omega-3 fats right there besides wild salmon. We've got anchovies. We've got sardines. How are we doing on time? 10 more minutes. All right. And then also there's some nutrients that I ask you to consider. They're in all my books, but they're not traditional nutrients. They're good bugs. Those are fermented foods, live bacteria. How ironic. We've been telling you to take antibiotics and kill bacteria for all of medicine. It's our favorite thing to do. Now we're telling you to eat bacteria every day. I know, little pivot, but that's the truth of the science. Think about it. Every culture has fermented foods because it's the first way we stored food. And then phytonutrients, just simple. That's that rainbow celebrations. You're looking at colors on your plate. You're looking at a variety of phytonutrients. Reds are lycopenes. Blues and greens are anthocyanins. Right? Oranges are carotenoids. And these all have really cool functions in our body. Right? But the main thing is getting them into your mouth. So nutritional psychiatry, a little different than the rest of psychiatry, right? With Prozac, I'm just binding to your serotonin reuptake inhibitor. With psychotherapy, I'm just trying to liberate you from your mother. Just kidding. I love mom. Right? But the mechanism of nutritional psychiatry quite varied. Right? Some people I'm getting more B12 into finally. Some patients, right, they're getting these kind of more neuroplasticity and BDNF as they engage in a more mental fitness and nutritional psychiatry informed lifestyle. More plants, maybe a healthier microbiome. Maybe just in asking you to get rid of the processed food, I'm getting rid of the toxic stuff, the microplastics, the trans fats, the food dyes, right? Getting on the healthy food, maybe you lose some weight, or maybe you already are with, some of these new GLPs, and that means you need less medicine. Wow, this is all great, right? Not anything wrong with medicine. It's just why would we want to be on a medicine that we don't need to be on? And then these last three, I just think food is special because there's a food SIBO effect. I'm telling you avocados. I'm telling you vitamin E. I'm saying you can do it. I want you to do it as much as possible for the next 2 weeks. And then I want to see how you feel. And I think in that, the more you engage in it, the more you look back and think, geez, that talk from Ramsey, it really helped, really changed things. I think you're going to feel better. Right, in that way that we kind of degrade placebo, but I love it. Because to me, placebo means I'm living according to my values and I'm loving it and I'm feeling it and I'm honoring that effort. Food connection community, it's whether it's being here in a talk where we all agree this stuff matters to our kids and we know, right, we see eye to eye a little bit on it, or whether it's joining your food co-op or whether it's, joining, one of the things about the vegan and the carnivore movement is, man, you got a tribe now. Nothing feels as good as a tribe. You got rules, like all T-bone. So food connection community is very important. And then empowerment, self-care, everything else in psychiatry is kind of something done to you, right? Like a medicine that you take or an interpretation you've got to integrate. So I like this because it's about you. It's about you and your grocery store, your farmer's market, your chef's night. It's about your kitchen. It's about, can you take a little bit of time, some minutes, some meal prep? And it shows you, it's the strongest vital sign, I think. Do you know how to nourish yourself and honor that or not? It's just that simple for me. Okay, so I'm waxing on here. Let's get into the data. First of all, if you have depression in your family, this study is really important, and it's important to see. It came out in 2017 saying there's expert guidance. If you have depression and you don't want to get it again, here are the 5 things you should do. And it's mostly the stuff you know. Eat a traditional diet, eat whole foods, get rid of the commercial goods and the sweets and the fast foods if you can. right? Let's think about how bad is the bad food. Well, this is a study of 31,000 nurses in the Nurses Health Study. Those who were in the top 20% of processed food consumption had a 49% increased risk of depression. So these are correlational studies. They give us a sense of the data, right? In this study, 10,000 university students followed for 4.5 years. The in red brackets are the students who are eating most like grandma, right? They're eating a Mediterranean style diet, at the top half of the class of that. Right? They have a 30 to 50% decreased risk of getting depressed during college. You imagine if I had a pill, I was like, hey, no side effects, tastes delicious. If your kids take it, I'll reduce the risk that they get depressed by half for the next 4 years. Who wouldn't give that pill to their kids? So then we get into the real data, randomized trials. RCTs are the gold standard. This was the first one ever done. 2017 it came out. Again, not that long ago, just 7 years ago. First ever trial, 12 weeks, 7 nutritional psychiatry sessions saying, here are the Mediterranean dietary type foods we want you to eat. 32% of patients go into full remission. And these are people that are already in treatment. If this was a medicine, it would be $1 billion drug next year. Number needed to treat means how many patients I have to talk to about this idea to get one into full remission? It's just 4. Right? So I just say Mediterranean diet to 4 patients with depression, 1 goes into full remission. For other interventions, sometimes in psychiatry, like adding on an atypical antipsychotic, aripiprazole, for example, number needed to treat there is 10. In the SMILES trial, when you add the Mediterranean diet, you save a patient $140 a month. When you add on a second generation antipsychotic, you're often adding a medication that costs $500 to $1,000 a month. So both effective, but one I think is a little more palatable, let's say. This is about our kids. This was depressed college freshmen with poor eating habits. They didn't even give them a session. They just gave them a hamper of food, olive oil, nuts, nut butter, the spices, cinnamon, and turmeric, some meal plans, and a video, 13-minute video. I don't know. They asked to see it. They wouldn't show it to me. It's proprietary. But I'm guessing it's like someone like me being like, food and mood matter. Here's some foods. Mediterranean diet's incredible. You're a little down and your eating habits are poor, so we designed this program for you. Eat the stuff in the box. We're going to call you in a week for 5 minutes. They did that twice, 2 phone calls. So a total of 23 minutes of contact time, 13 minutes in a video, 2 5-minute phone calls, 1 box of food. What happens? Shazam, our kids are less suppressed in 3 weeks. That was very cool. And what do we say to our kids, especially our daughters? Oh, freshman 15, honey. I'm so sick of that. So sick of it. Why don't we say, hey, it's a really important time you're launching. And food's a big part of that, as you know. Daddy's obsessed with it and how it affects your mental health. Let's think about the stuff in your cafeteria. Let's think about things we can give you for the dorm room. Let's think about how to keep it delicious and keep your mood up. All right, what about our young boys? They're never going to change what they eat. Yes, they will. 100% of young men with depression who have an intervention of just 2 nutritional psychiatry sessions, 100% have decreased symptoms. 36 go into full remission from their clinical depression. I interviewed Jessica Bays, the lead author in the study, at some of my YouTube channel because I was like, Jessica, no one's going to believe this. What happened? She says, you meet these young guys and they're depressed and they look up with their sad eyes and they say, thank you. Thanks for giving me something to do. I'm really struggling. I don't know whether, maybe the med's not working, but and what worked? More plants they liked. You like carrots, eat more carrots. You like celery, eat more celery. Made a list. More olive oil. That was that thing. Why do I want you to dip bread in olive oil? Because when your son dips enough bread in olive oil to get 3 tablespoons of olive oil, his depression gets better because it increases his Mediterranean dietary patterns. Where make olive oil the main fat in your diet. And then legumes. The young bros, of course, wanted to get swole and they want protein. So lo and behold, lentils, hummus, beans have tons of protein. Right. Next study, Healthy Med, 152 patients. This is where it's fun. Like if you've got some kids and they like to cook, have a cooking class, teach them the Mediterranean style diet. Why? These super depressed patients learned it over 3 months. Look at what happens in the top right-hand corner. They go from like on the edge of hospitalization, suicidally depressed to like doing, okay, mildly depressed, able to engage in therapy, able to engage in exercise. Right? So that's another way that diet works. It doesn't get you all the way into remission, but it gets you better enough to get into the other stuff. This was the Amend trial. And then you've been seeing trials about ketogenic diets. There have been 2 that have come out in the past years. They're both pilot studies, which is really important. They're not controlled. They're not high quality data, but they're interesting. This was for patients with bipolar disorder and severe mental illness. A lot of bipolar disorder out there going to a ketogenic diet. had a huge effect. Patients lost a lot of weight. They 81% were in full recovery at the end of the trial, where at the beginning of the trial, only about 40% were in recovery. It's really powerful. Ketogenic diets are a well-formulated ketogenic diet. There's another one just came out of Ohio State University of college students augmenting treatment as usual with the Mediterranean style diet. They had a 71% decrease in depression rating scales. They lost 6% of their body mass, and their inflammatory factors went down. So very cool. When I talk to patients about diet, then just to get into some of the advice, and then we'll get to your questions, I found out a lot of this. Right? People were like, hey, they weren't talking about food. They were like no cholesterol, no saturated fat, lots of red wine, just like the doctor said. The news changed, the data changed, alcohol is not good for your brain in any way. But these rules I didn't like at all. They didn't fill my plate, and they didn't direct me or my patients towards the stuff we need to eat. And this is the kind of stuff that advice resulted in, right? Even if it's good advice, this is when you follow it, you end up just eating carbs, right? This is a low fat, reasonably low cholesterol, no red meat diet, right? What's the main molecule you see here? Glucose, the bagel, the bun, the ziti, the toast, the pizza, I said, eat the rainbow. The guy's like, I ate the rainbow gummy bear rainbow. I was like, not the rainbow gummy bear rainbow. Right? Instead, we want these swaps, right? I don't want to take away your cheeseburger. I like I'm in Wyoming. I have to eat a cheeseburger. They'll like excommunicate me here, right? But I don't want you. When was the last time you had a salmon burger? So easy. Oh my gosh. So my son is actually in culinary arts in his little school. They're making the salmon burgers from Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety. More andropause tears. Here they come. All right. Potato chips, kale chips. Wow. Full of nutrition and kids love them. Soda, but if you're on it, right, what do? How about some kombucha? How about a spindrift? How about some of that seed lip and you make a mocktail? Right, steak and potatoes. Oh, who's going to say no to that? Yum. Especially watching those young children devour it. If you're a meat eater, I love what. But realistically, beef and vegetable stew, right? Because you can see so much more nutrient density. All these nutrients, right? You want to know, it's such a big list, but we all know these are important for mental health. Then Laura Lachance, who I just saw up in Canada, my Canadian colleague, a brilliant nutritional, probably the most published nutritional psychiatrist in the Americas. This was one of her first papers, Antidepressant Foods, we published together. And we just said, hey, literature, what nutrients matter the most for depression? If we wanted to prevent it, if we want to treat it, what nutrients? I said, there are 12 that have the level of evidence that you should put them in your equation. So we put them in the equation. What foods have the most of these 12 nutrients per 100 calories? Again, the most nutrient dense. And this is why you're going to feed your kid livers and oysters tonight, and they're going to blame me. No, this is where we understand food categories, right? You've never eaten watercress. That's okay. Look at the top 10. They're all leafy greens. Right? Maybe your family eats seafood and they like mussels and clams and oysters. That's amazing. 3 of the top 5. Why do we include animal foods? Because all the other nutrient density rating scales don't include animal foods, but 99% of people eat some form of meat or flesh. So it's really important to note some are better than others when it comes for our mental health. So quickly, everyone, I'm going to get to your questions. Seafood, greens, nuts and beans, rainbow celebrations. Don't forget the fermentations. Why? Nutrient density. 6 oysters, how many calories? No one ever knows. It's crazy. Like we're supposed to count calories. Only 60 calories in 6 oysters, 10 calories in a small to medium oyster. Look at all the nutrition you get. Look at all that zinc. Right? Remember, most people weren't getting enough zinc. Like a third of you weren't getting enough B12. Wow, look at all the B12, days of B12. And that's not even as much as the clams. Clams have 1,400% of your daily need of B12 in just 3 ounces. All right, this is my spiritual home. I know we're going to be ending soon, so I just remember this is heaven. It's the largest lacinato kale field in America. Imagine how many all kale Caesar salads I could make out of that field. I think about that sometimes when I'm feeling sad, and then I feel happy. All right, so leafy greens, why? Nutrient density, all the vitamin K, all the vitamin A. Chop them, saute them, drop them in your mac and cheese. Seafood, greens, nuts and beans, and seeds. Nuts and beans, why? Well, the best snack, right? Raw unsalted nuts. They're satiating because they have fat, protein, and fiber, right? You can chew them slowly, work on your mindfulness, settle down a little bit, right? And they don't keep you coming back for more. Also, look at all the nutrition, all the vitamin E, all the magnesium, and a little bit of protein. And then beans, I told you I'd show you lentils. Oh, wow. Wowzers, right? Look at that. 18 grams of protein, 90% of your folate. Every mental health person agrees that folate is probably the most important B vitamin for mood. We actually test it when you're depressed. Is your folate off? right? Not if you eat lentils. And then dark chocolate, people think it's like, oh, that's my like givey, it's like a guilty treat. No, 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 no. Fermented food, plant-based food, high fiber food, high magnesium food, high iron food. That's the dark chocolate I'm talking about. Go for 70% cacao or more, enjoy it, savor it, let it melt in your mouth, and you're getting a lot of nutrition there. Don't forget, oh, my dad joke, rainbow celebrity. You guys got to know though, oh, I got to warn you, risks and benefits. I'm a responsible doctor, right? So you're going to be eating these more colorful things, and then one day it can happen, God forbid it happens to your kid, and I haven't warned you. There's benefits, right? But there's risks of colorful plants. So rainbow finger, folks, it doesn't get reported enough in the literature. It can be very frightening. But this is how you know you're eating enough colorful vegetables. So try and get there. Let me know when it happens. Tag me on the internet when you post it. Okay. And then don't forget the fermentations. Fermented foods are the best way for you to eat and your kids to eat probiotics, right? One little 6-8 ounces of kefir has almost 1 trillion colony forming units. You know how much money it would take you to get that many colony forming units in your probiotic pills? Like $100. So again, more fermented foods. Make sauerkraut with your teens. Don't forget to open it up. If you ever made sauerkraut, it's easy. All you need is salt and a cabbage, organic cabbage. You put it in there, stuff it all in. You put the salt in, stuff it all in, and then you open it up every day. This is important. It explodes. It smells awful. It smells like cabbage first, cabbage first, cabbage, and then it's like, oh, yum. That smells like something pickled and delicious. It's a very fun thing to do. Everyone, these are the power players. Again, they're food categories. Seafood, greens, nuts and beans, olive oil's on there. I want that to be in the main fat in your house. We didn't talk about unburdening, but this is all you went through a lot as a parent. Some of you are still holding on to a lot of stuff from COVID. Some of you are holding on to stuff in the way the system didn't help your kids. Some of you are holding on to stuff from your childhood, right? I'm not trying to say that we're all burdened by trauma, but if there are things burdening you, take a step into that. Free yourself a bit. And then purpose, we're all here probably in some ways because a big part of our purpose is the perpetuation of the species by trying to be good, responsible, caring, loving, evidence-based parents. I hope this helps you do that. My team and I have tried to create a lot of resources for you. We have our free Friday Feels newsletter. We host a free mental fitness kitchen. Happy to focus one on teens with you guys someday. I've got free resources, Brain Food on a Budget, some of these downloads, 3 e-courses, 5 books, the podcast. I try to post on YouTube. I'm always on Instagram, unfortunately, but DM me if you have questions. I've got great clinicians. We're licensed mostly in New York and California, but a few other states. So if you need help, Emily Berner is our health coach. She's amazing with teens and families. She's who teaches our cooking class. She also does one-on-one coaching. This is our newsletter, and we also have a Rate Your Mental Fitness quiz if you want to get into this stuff. So as I said, I'm going to share our slide deck. Everything's on my website. I want to make sure and get to your questions. Here's how you can subscribe and check things out. And thank you all. It's an absolute treat to get to share this data. Sorry to fast talk a little bit there. And let's see if we have some questions from you
We
all.
have questions.
All
Thank you,
right,
Dr.
let's
Ramsey.
go.
Thank you. So much here. So much that's new. That's, we hear about self-care and how we can't give it to our children if we're not well ourselves. We know about movement. We know about the importance of connection. But now this is so wonderful that we're talking about brain health. So somebody just said you showed a talk about 7 surprising foods that beat depression. What are the 7 surprising foods that beat depression?
Man, that's a great question. I made that a long time ago. I think one of them is probably seaweed because it's got so much iodine in there. I know in me, I've got a small tinned fish in there, like an anchovy or a sardine, because there's so much emphasis on wild salmon. Then when I was like, oh, anchovies on the pizza, right? It's like, no, like sardines and anchovies are amazing when you learn how to cook them. So much yummy umami. So those are definitely on there. For sure, there's a nut like a cashew or an almond. I often emphasize cashews because so many women in particular need more iron, and cashews are our highest iron nut. There's definitely kefir on that list because I'm just always going back. I'm having a hard time with the sugar these days, so I can't drink that much kombucha. Really, really was helpful for me. I'm about maybe 1,500 days away from alcohol, which has been great for my mental health. But the kombucha was really instrumental. I think for the first week, I was like trying to suck whatever alcohol I could find in a kombucha, but eventually it was great. And then it's just too much sugar. But kefir, to back to that, there's also coconut kefir. These are, as you can see, I'm going through surprising foods in the kind of food categories, right? Lentils might be on there. It's not going to surprise you, but it's really trying to get people intrigued about, people have never thought about a clam as a brain superfood. But everyone thinks about B12, B12 shots. B12 is amazing for mental health. But it's like, well, what's the food that has the most B12? It's like, it's a clam. And so those are some of the foods that are on that list. Thank you so much for noticing that and asking, and check out the download and see if I got them right.
Okay, okay. Sing me the song again.
Seafood, greens, nuts and beans, and a little dark chocolate. Rainbow celebrations. Don't forget the fermentations.
Beautiful.
And
I'm
actually,
gonna,
that last part, I flubbed this on the WGN, but the last part was helped by a Northwestern psychiatry professor, Catherine Roberts. If you have any kids or family going to Northwestern, she heads up student mental health at Northwestern, and she was my resident way back in the day at Columbia. And boy, if you're in Chicago and you're looking for somebody to help, she would always be my first call. She's brilliant psychiatrist. Was at Yale before she was at Northwestern. Has always been in student mental health.
fabulous. Olive oil, what's the best kind? Is there a best kind?
Yeah, so we've all seen the news and the Instagram memes about adulterated olive oil. So you take a little olive oil, you add a little safflower oil, nobody knows. And so there are a couple of different ways. For the folks who want to spend a little more, I'm part of the olive oil, Fresh Press Olive Oil Club. I'm an affiliate of theirs. There's a discount code in my newsletter because I love it. I love it because it helps me diversify the olive oils I'm eating. I love it because it shows up every month and it helps me keep track of, like, are the bottles accumulating it? Or am
Mhm,
I walking the talk? Is olive
mhm,
oil the main fat in my life? And so that's one way. The other way is I go with an extra virgin olive oil. If you go online, Consumer Reports, a lot of places have kind of ranked the olive oils. From what I recall, Whole Foods was really good. That apple cider vinegar maker, Bragg's, actually has a really good olive oil. I'm not affiliated with any of those, but I go and just use extra virgin. Some people are like, oh, the fancy oils, don't cook with them. It's like, yeah, I use a kind of cheaper extra version for cooking and sauteing, and then I finish with like a real nice fresh pressed one because they're so green and aromatic and spicy. That's how I use my olive oil. Great question, though.
What's the number one question that you do get when you finish a talk like this?
Let's see. Oh boy, that's a great question. For years, it would be about coconut oil. Sometimes it's been about GMOs or organic. Increasingly, people are asking me like around like maybe what I eat in a day. Oftentimes, there are questions about coffee. A lot of times, there are questions about like farm fish versus wild fish. I say wild fish, but some farm fish is farmed very well. It's hard to know, but some you can know about. Those are what about people ask about the misinformation sometimes? Like people have seen, kind of gives you a good example. So kale is a low oxalate green. Like if you have kidney stones and you go to a dietitian, you're like, oh, I have oxalate kidney stones. What do they do? They're like, oh, eat low oxalate foods like kale. If you go on the internet, there's a whole like campaign about kale being a high oxalate food, horrible, leaching the minerals. That one of the influencers actually talks about it causes crystals to form in women's personal, private, sexual parts, causing all kinds of pain from the kale.
Hmm,
Right. So I get questions like that sometimes about like kale and food kind of misinformation. Those are the main ones. Sometimes I get questions about meds and kind of safety, but not
hmm,
too much.
hmm. And one question just came in, the doctor's name at Northwestern again, so.
Oh, Catherine Roberts, the
Yeah,
great Dr. Catherine Roberts. She is, yeah, she's wonderful psychiatrist.
what do you think people get wrong about nutrition? What do you think? Go, oh, that's
Yeah,
wrong.
I think people miss the psycho-spiritual aspect of nutrition in a way, right? The way that, and I think I feel very fortunate to have been on a farm, to have grown a lot of foods. To some way, when I'm in the grocery store, it's like, we were like, oh, organic or not organic. I'm like, man, that's tough to grow non-organic, really. There's something about when I'm looking at the nutrients or looking at the food on my plate, like I'm really connected to kind of, I don't know, my sense of purpose and parenting, and that, like everyone else, I love processed food. I love fast food. It's ish. I don't usually feel good afterwards. But what I really love, what lights me up much more, is when I've got an awesome sheet pan of veggies and some healthy lean proteins, and my family's gobbling it down. I think those are moments when I feel really I don't know, I feel like I've gotten off the question, but those are the moments in terms of like, again, psycho-spiritual journey, like people getting it wrong. I think people get things wrong, like protein, right? Like we're not supposed to eat processed food, right? Ultra processed foods, but like, boy, you got to use your protein powder, right? And your multivitamin and your protein shake. And don't forget your protein bar after your workout. Because if you don't get enough protein, like 9 grams per pound of blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of like, are you kidding me? Do we not learn our lesson with macronutrient obsession? Like you do not need to eat that much protein. No one who's trained in nutrition thinks you need to eat this much protein. Am I getting sarcopenia? Do you think? Because I don't do
Mhm.
anything other than try and eat beans and other
Mhm.
sources of protein, meat, seafood. Yeah, I guess I'll have an occasional scoop of a protein powder. That's actually more for my kids right now, so I think it's very important. But I think that people get fetishization wrong, that it's about one food or one macronutrient. I
Mhm.
think people get hydration wrong, where they're like drinking lots and lots and lots and lots of water all the time, as opposed to eating plants, which is eating lots and lots of water all the time. I think people get supplements wrong. I've probably been clear about that. Spending a lot of money, a lot of time, putting a lot of faith in supplements, and not putting faith in healthy food and exercise, or not having that be the number one thing. Mm, I see people not speaking honestly, or having a feeling and not expressing it. Like one of my patients was asking me today, like how I know as a psychiatrist, and it was kind of I was like, well, I don't know, I just feel it. Like I'm just like, and then a word comes, like someone's like, engaging in something that's really repulsive, and I'll say, it feels there's like kind of seems like you're trying to make yourself almost like people be repulsed by you, and they'll say, oh my God, I am, right? I don't know where that comes from. It's just feeling it. So, but I think that sometimes people really struggle that to honor that, like when you're feeling anxious, it's not because you have an anxiety disorder always. When you're feeling sad, it's not because you're depressed. I know you all know this, but I feel sometimes, I guess the mistake I see people making, both with their food and their mental health, is they don't honor their feelings and give them truth. They try and intellectualize or explain them away or pathologize them. And so I think that's a big mistake I see all of us making, is having a hard time sitting with it, especially the complex ones like grief, where it's not just about being sad. It's also about letting go. It's also about stepping into something new. I mean, grief is super complex. My therapist is all up in my grill about how my grieving process is making me too moody because it's not good enough. So sorry, that's a little theme in my life. But those are some of the things that I think about in terms of what I see people not doing. And then I guess just not eating enough plants or fermented food. Just people just missing out whole food categories. You look in your fridge and it's just not colorful. That's where I see there's the and last one, sorry. People making it too big of a deal. Like, oh, it's so complicated. All the nutrients, all the food categories. Like, what do I do? It's like that protest is too much, right? Where it's like, I hate seeing this. Like, are you kidding me? This is the easiest thing. Easy peasy. It's like olive oil and some veggies thrown in the oven at 400 degrees for 30 minutes, 20 minutes. Right? This is about like grilling some salmon. I mean, this is all delicious. So I think that's the other thing, where people make it too complicated and they let the misinformers like, ooh, you didn't know this about this one food that you're eating all the time. You think it's great for you, but it's actually horrible for you. You don't unfollow those people and shut them out of your life. I unfollow those people. You got to be a real expert to get in my mind and influence me. I'm open to it, curious, but not from those folks.
We're getting close to the end here. You talked about how important it is for parents to role model healthy nutrition. What else, so we role model it. How else do we get our kids eating healthy?
I think you serve it. As I said, I think you engage them. Like one thought I've been having is I fear that as my kids get older, I'm doing too much. I've not sent them into the grocery store with like $200 and a grocery list. I've been fantasizing recently about like once or twice a month, I want them to make us dinner, like finished to scratch, whole thing, dishes in the dishwasher, just like we do it for you. Not vindictively, but because like that's the way you do it when you're grown up. You take care of it from beginning to end. You don't leave a messy kitchen. You shop for stuff. You make it efficiently. And all those are learned skills, right? We're all messy cooks until you become a clean cook. So I think that cooking and engaging, I really am probably, it doesn't happen as much as it should. But when I get my kids engaged in the prep, right? Like kids love the big chef knife and chopping veggies, right? It's soon, and so they make like plastic knives. So I got my kids started with this, where I'll like, put vegetable soup on the menu because I want them to chop a bunch of veg for me. just because it's a time to sit and engage with the food. So I think the shopping, the food prep, and the preferences, and then the, that kind of whatever your version of the no thank you bite is, that especially for teens, I think it's hard for parents to try new stuff. I feel this all the time where it's like, I really want you to eat whatever, but I know I've got one shot to get calories in you tonight. Like, I know you eat this. And so I think figuring out maybe that other part is, how do you incorporate and expand those new tastes, new bites? Like we're like my son likes this cucumber salad that has this kimchi dressing on it at this one restaurant. And I always love going there and ordering it because it's like those fermented flavors that he's maybe like he's getting a little more grom. So those are some loose ideas here after talking at you all for 50 minutes. I hope I'm making sense at this point.
Fabulous. Do you have a favorite cookbook?
I do. Okay, let's be. First of all, Eat Complete. This great story of this book is I went in and I pitched a book, and this never happens. I went in and pitched a book called like Natural Brain Change or something like that, and the publisher was like, "Yeah, would you do a cookbook or just the food chapter?" And like gave us a cookbook deal, which is like I didn't understand the publishing world. Like really rare to get a uh, four-color book. And so that's Eat Complete. It's 100 recipes, and they're made out of the 21 most important nutrients for brain health. Then this is Brain Health Kitchen, which is Annie Fenn's book. Annie Fenn is also a Jackson local, but I think this is the most beautiful brain health book. Honestly, it's got a whole chapter on olives. Annie is an OBGYN doc who retired. She leads these amazing trips in Italy. I like those two a lot. Carolyn Chambers did the recipes for Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety. She has the most popular recipe Substack. And so I would check out Carolyn Chambers. I don't remember the name of her most recent cookbook, but it's like super simple, delicious, easy. Those are some cookbook recs that off the top of my head.
It really is easy. We need to get a little educated and then we need to go to work and model for our kids because it really is important. We're giving away this book, everybody. Put your name in and we'll get it to you.
Thank you, everyone.
I see all the hearts and I see all of the people saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, Dr. Ramsey. We're so grateful.
Thanks for having me. I'll look forward to seeing you down the road. Take care, everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.